part one of Williamsburg and Wickham was a tour of the old Williamsburg Cemetery, which is located between Independence and Arcadia off of Highway 93. And after we completed that, Jim and I got in the car along with Sandy and Kevin, and we went up Double X to look at Wickham Valley. So this is part two of Williamsburg and Wickham. I'm going to read and drive at the same time. Huh? This is going to be a good... Okay. Now, we just took a turn onto County XX. And right up here on our right, it's a home now, but it was the Williamsburg School. Who doesn't have their seatbelt on?
Could be me.
No wonder, I'll have to listen to that dinging all the way up here. Okay, this was the Williamsburg School, but it's the second one. The first one you said was right next door.
In that field. The line fence, I guess we would call it, the property line. This is the William Arnold farm on our right. Now, on the left would have been his brother Douglas owned.
Okay.
But then after a while, that was a Mauer farm, and it keeps going through. But the schoolhouse was in this field here first, and this was on the Henry Hartman's farm. And then when it got rebuilt in 1912, I believe, we had some history on it. I think we're going to... Yeah,
I've got some numbers here, but it said that they started... the first one was wood, and then they decided to build, in 1914, they decided to build the brick one back there. And they bought some land from Passons. Possums. I don't know if I'm saying that name right. But, and they paid $35 for it, for the land. And the new school back there, it had a full basement under it. It had indoor toilets, which was really different back in 1914. But it was a really nice school.
Yeah, and it was closed in 1955 and sold for private residence.
But they said technically they stopped running the school in 1938, but they did not officially close it until
it was used as
1955.
It was used for church services. It was used for public meetings.
Yeah.
They would have school events, spelling bees, and things like that. The competition was really fierce between all these little rural schools.
And that was back in the days when you didn't have television, and in the winter, people went out and did things at night. You know, they went out and they went to schools, they went to dances. There was all kinds of stuff going on.
We just went past there where it was the Bryce farm was back there on our left, belonged to David and Charlotte Shank. Then up in here, there was a little family called the Bells. They lived here on Kenny Whitechick's. Kenny's a little ways up the road here yet. But William Borman's farm would be about here. We were driving right through his farm because it ran east to west across the valley here. There was other farmers in here. Hiram Skillen's farm was William Borman's. This is where Hiram had settled up in this area of the woods.
Okay, farther up this valley.
Yes.
Okay. So you're going to show us where Wickham's farm was.
We'll run out of road almost when you finally get at that.
Somebody said that this valley should have been called Campa or Guza Valley, because that's where a lot of families were up here.
And both of those families are almost all gone now too, I said, out of the valley. But yeah, they keep rotating. Everything you see is for sale at least once in your lifetime, because that generation kind of dies off, somebody takes over. And all the families that we used to know, I said, many of them are gone.
Yeah.
And the young family, the children move on to different places.
So I was just having a conversation the other day. We were talking about how, family land changed quite a bit. Maybe none of the kids were interested in farming. But at least you had that choice, because if you had been living in Europe, maybe in Germany or Norway, you didn't have that choice. If your dad was a blacksmith, that meant you were going to be a blacksmith.
Yeah, and there wasn't the land option to be available. No. The land was all spoken for.
Right.
And it stayed in the family, and it was usually the eldest one that kind of picked it up.
Right.
And everybody else was a man for yourself, whatever you could be. Things are tough. Everybody had to be a seamstress or a school teacher or something, but that wasn't demand too. It was the only occupations you could get.
But you weren't locked into your profession by, by tradition. You could be something else. If you had this farm, but you weren't interested in farming, if your kids weren't, well, then it changed hands. We got to look at it that way sometimes. So you're going to show us too where the Wickham Valley School was. That was
See, here's Doris
here.
Gouza Lane up here.
Right.
Yeah, see? And I says, back in here now, this belongs to Scott Compa back in here.
Okay.
But there was a lot of small farms around here, so 60, 80 acres. But way back on the right back here was that Darvius Pratt farm back there. We hit those 2 Pratt stones over there. That was way back in this end of the valley.
Do you know whose farm this one was? With the brick house?
I should, but I'm not positive.
Not either. It seemed like right around the turn of the century, people started building brick houses. And there were brickyards. There were brickyards in Independence. There were brickyards in Arcadia. And I think they thought they were a little more fireproof if they were brick, too. Although, we're going into another town here.
We'll be going over the township of Burnside.
We're
so
in
we're
Burnside.
Kind of flipping jurisdictions here. But
Yep. So we'll go up here, and there is something up here at the end of the valley that's kind of used to be a landmark.
See, now we're getting into Jeff Bouch's farm.
Okay.
And Bouch's farm used to be John Klimak's.
Okay.
And that's where the Wickham Valley School was built, on that farm.
Oh, okay.
But we aren't there yet. We're still working on it.
Okay, we're
And now
going up the
Jeff
valley.
lives distance away, and a lot of people have bought smaller acreages in between here. I think Corey Bouch, lives in here now.
And I got to tell all our fans, this is not Name That Road with Jim.
No.
We know where we are. This is
We're just not positive who lives here no more.
Yep. We don't want people to get all excited and think, oh, what road is that? And we're telling you what it is. So up here.
Right in this field up in here.
Okay.
This is where the Wickham Valley School stood.
Right here?
Right here where the green grass meets this was the Wickham Valley School here.
Okay.
Now we've heard a couple different versions of that school.
Really?
One said the thing was 60 feet long. It was a huge building. Other places, I think we had a note here someplace, said it wasn't that big. It was 24 by 30, a 2-story school. There's all kinds of stories about this schoolhouse. Below the road here was the spring where they used to get the water from.
Okay.
We should stop for a second. And they used to get the water out of that spring there, and Marcel Gouza here, who was right in front of us, Marcel says that he remembers they'd get a bucket of water and they'd put it in the water cooler. There's a lot of times you see frogs swimming around there, little tadpoles yet, But he said nobody got sick, and he said you all had, first it was just out of a ladle, then after a while, then they turned around and they got a Red Wing thing when you press the bottom and the water comes out, a water cooler. So that was done.
At least nobody swallowed a tadpole or anything, hopefully.
And the original school teacher was getting $18 a month. And 1891 is when they built the first school. Otherwise, the children all went to Travis Valley. They walked over the hill to get to school from the 1860s to the 90s.
Good shape those days.
Yeah. And the first school was 24 by 30. That was a big school in its time.
Yeah.
I said, but the Wickham Valley farmers, then during the Depression, they built a brick schoolhouse. Costed about $4,000.
Well, that's pretty good. During the Depression, they were able to do that.
And it had indoor plumbing and a library. Teacher was up to $75 a month. So
wow.
It got torn down in '47.
So yeah, it didn't get moved anywhere as far as we know.
Now we're driving up here. This here now is all, let me think, Pikes lived up in this end of the valley. Marcel Gouza's farm was Edward Pike, and then next to him was John Pike. Up the road here, we got some cattle out.
We got cows out on the road,
but they're only blocking half our but we can get by.
We should be able to squeeze by
This is Jamie Beck's place. Jamie works here for Hanson Auction Service.
Okay.
This is used to be part of Thomas Compa, but see, on the computer they had it spelled Compa.
Oh, well.
P-A, see, Compa.
Okay,
You step on it and see what you could pass her. Well, otherwise, we're going to have cattle chasing all the way up the valley.
Oh, dear. All right, as long as she doesn't run out in front of me. All right,
There's some apples we'll nail on the way back, but we'll shut it off so nobody sees us. We take them.
Okay.
Well, up in this valley here, this Tom Compa owned quite a bit of acreage up here back in the 1860s or 70s, whenever it came here. Think of some other papers at home. Anyhow, I believe in 47 or so, there was a home on this side of the road that the Compas had tore down, a log home.
Right. Oh, that was a good story. Yeah.
And they numbered even the logs, I guess, to try to save them in case somebody'd want to rebuild the home or something.
Yeah, it was. They were tearing down this old house on the farm, and when they got the siding off, underneath they found this beautiful log cabin that had made with big logs, and it said it had great no nails. It had big wooden pegs that were like
right, yeah.
like an inch wide wooden pegs that held it at the corners. And it had fairly high ceiling, and it was in beautiful shape. It was masterfully built. But yeah, they took it down and they numbered it in case.
But we haven't been able to track down what happened to that building. But we're working on it yet.
Yeah,
that'll have to be a different history file. Now right here, I said we stop just for a second. Over this knoll on the left here is Dominic Compa Farm.
Okay.
Now it was Dominic. But anyhow, in 1953, I believe was the year, May 11th, 12th, 53 on a Sunday, a tornado storm system started in Chatfield, Minnesota. And that baby just kept rolling north-northwest. It hit Upper Glencoe, which is west of Arcadia, cut over the hills. It hit Dominic's farm right over the hill, wiped out everything. And right up ahead up here is Clarence Gouza's old farm, and it wiped out Clarence's farm. I said all the buildings had to be rebuilt. The house, I believe, survived with damage. And I think that's probably what happened on Dominic's too. But that storm then hopped over the Travis Valley, did more damage, and it went up. And I think it finally ended up petering out someplace up by Elk Creek, up in that neck of the woods. But
oh my gosh.
It was a tremendous swath of land that got destroyed. And luckily, I think there was only one or two people got killed. One farmer in Minnesota, a barn fell on him, and it was plumb full of hay, so that you couldn't kind of hold that up too good. But outside of that, I said there was a few people got injured, but not bad enough that it was critical.
And that was 1953.
1953. But that's a storm story, and we're not doing that now.
No, that's another story.
But this was the Clarence Gouza farm, I guess would have been in our lifetime. Clarence was a director here for the Wickham Valley School. His dad was a director for the Wickham Valley School, and his grandfather was instrumental in getting the Wickham Valley School built. So they were quite a bunch here, I says, as far as education. And
I guess so.
And up here now, Jim Compa owns this. Jim Compa Construction here out of Arcadia. And the very end of the valley now, after the Compa place, this used to be a Gouza farm, and this was all Henry Wilson's back in here. Mrs. Wilson's buried down Williamsburg, and Henry's farm then was divided up. Now Gouza lived here. Joe Gouza's dad lived up here, and end of the valley was all like 40s of acreage, and it was all saved for, I think, the timber.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in winter, because there wasn't a lot of timber. And that's in Buffalo County, that side of our jurisdiction. So
right up here's the county line?
That's the county line. We'll be ending up in Buffalo County, and then their jurisdiction that's owned by some conglomerate now. They built a larger
there's a great big house back
home
there.
back there for it's a hunting lodge kind of a thing.
Now here, and you can't really see it anymore because it's grown up. There's so many trees. But it used to be this kind of a hill that stuck up, and they called it the Saba because that was the word for the way the women used to take their hair and put it in a bun on the back of their neck. And they called that hill the Saba. And it kind of stuck up, and you can't see it anymore because of the trees. But it was one of those landmarks.
Well, come in winter time when all the leaves fall, and then you'll be able to see it.
Yeah, I think Mary and I came out in the spring and tried to get a picture of it. And Vitus Compa told us where it was, and then Marilyn Compa too was pointing it out. But it was one of those landmarks anyway. So
like I said,
up in here.
This is Jim Compa's, and I think we'll turn around probably here, and we'll head back out of the valley.
Yeah. Well, it is a dead end. And I don't know
Yeah.
if at one time if that road continued on over the hill or not, but it doesn't anymore.
Many years ago, we hunted there, and I don't remember a field road or anything going over the hill, but never say never.
And I'd heard a story about a brick house, and I think it was in Wickham Valley, and it had to do with some compass, that it was a big brick house, and they jacked it up and they moved it like over a big hill before, with horses and things. I don't know if anybody else had ever heard that
Yeah, there was a house. I just read something here the other day about a house being moved up in this neck of the woods, but I don't recall.
Yeah, well,
I know, like
they did
Clarence
that.
Gouza here, he bought the Wickham Valley School when it went down, when it was decommissioned. The county sold it, and then Clarence sold parts off of it, and he used some of it, I says, for building purposes. And
They didn't let things just fall down and rot.
I was talking to Marcel Gouza down the road here, and Marcel said when they sold it, he said they were trying to salvage some of the brick. It wasn't Clarence, but another man was trying to break the brick loose, and he said it was really put together well.
Yeah.
And he said there was a wooden building with a brick outside, but there was a space between the brick and the wood. So the fella put a plank in there, and he tied that plank to the trailer hitch on his car, and he gave her a jerk. He said he said sometimes he'd yank and the rear wheels would come right off the ground, but he said the brick wasn't giving.
Oh, dear.
Then he got the second bright idea. He said he took a small charge of dynamite
Okay.
and he put it between the brick wall and the wood wall,
Oh, no.
thinking this shock is going to crack that brick. And ended up he blew the wooden wall into the basement.
Oh, dear.
But it didn't quite do what he wanted. But the part of the cleaning the school up or buying the school had to be all cleaned up. The land had to be put back for production.
Yeah.
So
Well, if you wouldn't have pointed it out, I mean, who would have known that was where the Wickham School was?
well, most of the old schools were sold for homes, or they were moved, dismantled and moved. But there was one section in every township that had to be, the money from that section was allocated for education.
Right.
When they sold that land off, that all went into a funding for schools and things like that to build stuff. And at that time you could do it. I said they were buying land, $1.25 an acre.
Yeah.
Some was homesteaded, but when you were getting $15 a month, that went to quite a ways. I guess a couple $100, you could pay wages for quite a while. And by that time, then you were into the tax rolls and start taxing people.
And I think that, I noticed that during the Depression, a lot of schools were either rebuilt or they were really improved, like they built a basement under them.
Yeah.
So I think they were getting money from the government, in the Recovery Acts to kind of supplement that. 'Cause I don't think they could have afforded that on their own. But
Well, like I said, Wickham Valley here decided in 1936 build their own school. But,
Yeah.
Right coming out of the Depression, and they did. So I said, the farmers were industrious. I said they knew how to save a dollar and where to spend it when it was good investment.
Yep.
There were a few went under, but I said most of them was just bad luck and hardship. It wasn't that farmers were lazy. I said,
No.
they all had to work hard. But they came here. You got to remember, this was all virgin land.
Right.
There was grubbing to do. There were creeks to navigate to get across. Buildings to put up. I mean, I don't know how many soddies we had out here or whatever they had to live in, but there had to be some type of a structure, and then families to support. So it wasn't just a matter of waving magic wand and went.
No.
See, up this valley up here, I think there was a right lived way up in the end
Way
here
up
back. This road was not here back in the 1870s.
Oh, okay.
In the 1870s.
This one that goes to the
yeah.
left here. We'll just go up here and then we'll turn around.
Well, we don't go too far. That's where Shabilla got murdered back up in here years
right
back, and
back at the
that's
end.
a different story. We're not going to get into that one.
No. We're just tempting people with these stories.
They just had a tractor ride. I said, just came here and turned around by Marcel's here a few days ago.
And that was a big one. I mean, there were over 30 tractors. It was pretty cool. So we'll just go up here a little ways and we'll turn around and come back. And then I could have to say we've pretty much done Wickham Valley.
Well, we may not have gotten everything right, and there was a lot of places that we passed, and there's clinics in here, and there's Bouches in here, and compounds were here, and there's a few left. But I said the generations change, and the people change, and I mentioned before, we know more people in the cemetery than we know on Main Street.
Yeah,
and that's not a good
getting
sign.
to be about the way it is. I think we'll just turn around here and go back.
And call her a day.
Yes, I think we've. Now you can see more farms way up there. You don't know who's way up and back there, do you?
This was Trempealeau boys back in here.
But way up at the end there.
I'm not sure if Jamie owns part of that Jamie back picked that up, or who
Okay.
did. I'm not sure. This is out of our neck of the woods, like they say.
Yeah.
And we don't want somebody to be betting the farm on it, and then they were totally wrong. Those guys told us.
Yeah. That's what Jim said.
Seen it on TV, it's got to be right.
It's got to be right.
It was on the internet, it's got to be right.
So before we wrap this up, we just have to tell people that we really tried to get these things right as far as dates and names and who was on which farm. Although I'm sure that somebody can call the studio and say, you got that all wrong. That was actually so-and-so living on that farm,
I believe that.
And that's okay. We don't get upset about that. We try.
It depends which information you look up. You look in one book, it'll say such and such, and the next book will tell you different.
Right.
So you got to remember, history is a pack of lies agreed upon.
Well, pretty much. And right here, you said that was where the Wickham
Just
School
over
had
the
been.
knoll here, yeah, was the school.
But somebody had said that it was 60 feet long. That's,
Well, yeah, I heard it was 60 feet long. It was a 2-story brick schoolhouse. It was a sturdy structure if it lifted the rear end of your car right off the bumper,
Boy, I guess
right off the
so.
ground. So, but
60 feet, that would have been pretty amazing. No?
yeah, I don't think it would have been that large.
No.
But
All right, well, we're going back down Wickham Valley, and it has an association with Williamsburg and the cemetery, and we hope you enjoyed this little bit of information here about old Williamsburg
Yep.
and the valley behind it, Wickham Valley. So
if they have information, don't be afraid to contact the studio
Yeah.
or let us know. There could be somebody out there has records from that cemetery. Or
you never
your
know.
great-great-grandfather, grandmother, or uncle or somebody
Yeah.
is buried out there. Add that to the records, I said, because the township doesn't have the records,
No.
and it would be, people should be remembered when they're gone.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, we'll say goodbye.
Till next time.